Welcome to People and Profit. This week, all things business and Brexit. I'm Kate Moody. Coming up, the Brexit effect on tech. How will startups and digital firms adapt to the newly reshaped European Union? British fishermen are heading into uncharted waters as their industry becomes a Brexit battleground. And we take a look at equivalence, a concept that could be key to the future of Britain's banking and financial services sector. It's been over 3.5 years since British voters decided to leave the European Union. Industries across Europe and around the globe have been trying to prepare for Brexit and the 11-month transition period that follows. Discussions on trade, regulations and security can all begin after the 31st of January. The head of the International Monetary Fund told France 24 that while the clock is ticking, both sides should strive for a thorough and comprehensive agreement.
It has to be a good agreement that is helping businesses to flourish on both sides. Whether it takes longer or less time is not so important. What is important is the quality of the agreement that would be reached. Because the UK and the European Union are quite integrated. Let's hope that the agreement would bridge the two sides.
Well, to get an idea of what's in store for tech companies across Europe, we can speak to Gianpiero Lotito, co-founder and CEO of Facility Live, the highest valued startup in Italy. Thank you for being with us. Tell us, what do you think Brexit is going to change, if anything, for Europe's tech industry?
Brexit can represent an opportunity for tech companies to establish a better relationship with the UK and with the UK market, of course. For UK is a way to be more attractive for tech companies. So if in the next future the rules between Europe and UK will be good to have a better relationship, probably it will represent an opportunity for both.
Is the UK still an attractive place for tech companies to put down roots?
In this moment, yes, because the rules didn't change anymore. We can see after the Brexit, and we can see what will happen in negotiation between EU and UK, and what UK will do to be more attractive for tech companies.
We've seen UK-based startups raising a record-breaking amount of money in the last year, despite the uncertainty over Brexit. Do you think that strong funding trend will continue, even as attracting talent perhaps become harder?
Of course, it depends from the rules of exchange of workers and many other conditions that can influence a difference in relationship between European companies and the UK market and UK financial market. I think that the next year and the next couple of years will tell more to us about how this can become, as I told before, an opportunity or to be a problem in the next future relationship. We will discover it.
What have other European cities been doing to attract business away from the United Kingdom?
Personally, I believe that the opportunity for Europe in the next 5 to 10 years is to establish a network of small valleys, cities that can create the ecosystem condition to be attractive for innovation. And I am not sure that we will have big cities that will become the best attractor in Europe.
Do you think that Brexit will have any impact on the EU's development of its digital single market?
Of course, because digital single market is in part new rules, because if you have a fragmented regulation between 28 or 27 after the Brexit countries, is very difficult to be competitive. Digital single market is a first giant step to have a tech industry in Europe credible and with a global dimension in competition. But there is also another challenge, another objective. If you have a strong digital industry in your area, you can support better also the other industries. Because as the Silicon Valley lesson and the Asian lesson teach to us, the digital industry can be a booster for the other industry because the primary innovation is on the ground and not imported from other geographical blocks.
In your opinion, what's the biggest challenge facing Europe's tech industry at the moment?
The biggest challenge is to have in 2, 3, 5 years the first group of tech champions that can compete at European level, at a global level. If we will have this group of tech champions on a dimension that will be higher than the current, we will have the traction for the whole ecosystem to be faster in growth. But I think that what the European Commission is doing now will boost this process, giving the possibility to accelerate the rising of a strong European tech industry, because I think that the world needs a strong European digital industry to be balanced.
Gianpiero Lotito, thanks so much for joining us on People and Profit. Well, the choppy waters that separate the UK from mainland Europe will be in focus as post-Brexit talks begin. British fishermen are hoping that foreign boats will be restricted from fishing in their waters, but they could find themselves swimming against the tide.
Dawn is still hours away when Davy and his crew set off from North Shields in northeast England. The lights of other fishing boats glint on the horizon, but there are far fewer than when Britain joined the EU in 1973. Davy blames Europe's fish-sharing quotas. Boats from the continent now take 6 times more from UK seas than British boats do from European waters. As they land the first catch of the day, Davy says he hopes that after Brexit, Britain can net a bigger share.
Our own fleet surely has to come first. When we leave Europe, we've got to be looking at a bigger picture to get a better, sustainable fishing for our own country. Never mind these foreign lads.
Fishing crews like Davy's account for less than 0.1% of the UK's economy. But for an island nation like Britain, they're a symbol of independence. Brexiteers even staged a fishing flotilla on the Thames ahead of the 2016 referendum on EU membership. Since then, though, a lot of the promises that negotiations will be easy have proven overconfident, and Davy worries politicians may be promising a pot of gold that isn't there.
The trouble is, once again, we've been promised and promised, and at the last minute, they'll sell you down the river because they've got no spine, any of them.
Back in port, last night's catch is being sold to a handful of buyers.
£8 the haddock, £8 yin, £8.9, £9 yin, £9.10.
Most of these fish are exported to Europe, making some wholesalers worry that any trade dispute with the EU could be damaging.
On a local level here in North Shields, probably 60% of that would go to the European markets predominantly. So without access into those markets, it would really hit the industry hard.
The EU's trade chief has already suggested fish are up for grabs, saying fishing rights could be the price of British access to European financial markets. In a choice between this tiny industry and the vast city of London, Britain's politicians may sacrifice the economic minnow in a bid to steer the wider economy away from the rocks.
Well, the financial services sector made up around 7% of the British economy in 2018. Brian Quinn's been looking at how the industry can do business with the EU post-Brexit.
Well, Kate, the UK is aiming for access to a system called financial equivalence. That's a regulatory framework under which non-EU firms are granted access to the bloc's markets if their home rules are considered close enough to Europe's own. Some 30 countries have provisions in place, including the US, Australia, and Japan. That means their investment firms and clearinghouses can work with EU clients and trade on EU stock markets without the costly process of setting up an EU subsidiary. Equivalence, however, is not equality. It doesn't cover retail or commercial banking, nor a large part of the insurance market, all of which the UK had free access to as an EU member state. It's also politically volatile. Brexit backers worry that the system could leave the UK as a rule taker, having to abide by EU regulations without having any say in them. And equivalence can be unilaterally withdrawn by the EU on just 30 days' notice, as happened to the Swiss stock exchange last July. All that is part of why many UK banks have pushed ahead with EU subsidiaries, and that could cost London business and jobs. At over 30 billion euros a year, the EU is the UK's biggest financial services export market. More than 300 UK firms have already opened EU subsidiaries, with around 7,000 jobs estimated to leave London in order to staff them. And while it remains to be seen what Brexit will bring, it has already hit the UK's image. A recent survey of senior finance executives saw London lose its spot as the world's top financial center for the first time to New York.
Brian, thanks so much for that update. Well, that's all for now, but don't forget you can follow France 24's Brexit coverage on our website and Facebook page. You can also listen back to this show as a podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher, and you can tweet me at Kate A. Moody. Until next time, thanks for watching.
France 24 es rigurosidad, precisión y responsabilidad. Somos una familia comprometida con el periodismo y la verdad.
C'est une des seules chaînes d'infos où on nous laisse jouer en plateau avec des Legos, avec des robots, avec tout un tas d'objets.
We take a return ticket to revisit some of the key people and places of the last 50 years of world television news.
على فرانس 24 يمكننا أن نحاور أصحاب القرار من العالم في كل الميادين ولدينا المساحة لكشف ثنايا مسيرتهم.
Aquí en France 24 tenemos a varias personas de distintos países, algo que es un reflejo de cómo es Latinoamérica, con culturas muy distintas. Y allí es muy bonito encontrar que en el deporte todos tenemos algo en común.
Les femmes, elles sont souvent victimes de l'actualité internationale, mais ce sont aussi des actrices majeures de la géopolitique. Et d'ailleurs, on en parle dans France 24.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.